Oh, we can start live. Because usually we
Can
can't do
can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
All right.
And we're actually live right now, even though we haven't started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, now.
And thank you for coming.
Now. You're on. Start.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speaking Truth to Power. I am Denise Kiechoff. This is Dr. Nakpangi Thomas, and we have Leah Dotson with us. And our special guest today is Ellie Savitt. Let me explain to you about Speaking Truth to Power, the new progressive voice of the Midwest. I think we've all seen that politics has started to change. And they say we're all becoming progressive, and I guess that's the term for it. I don't call it becoming progressive, I call it becoming enlightened. And Panji and I know that, and so does Leah, that history is changing. And in order for us to understand history, we have to tell the truth about it right now. So we want to be part, we're that new team that's going to be part of making sure you know what our new history is about to be. So we would like for you to tune in every Sunday from 4 to 5, where we will have some of the most progressive politicians and non progressive politicians and elected officials in the country. And we will actually be opening up the show for you to actually talk to them and ask them questions. And the reason I got into this is because I live in Washington County and I'm an activist. I don't like it when marginalized communities are taken advantage of. And you know what? We have to do something about it. And I think everybody deserves a voice. And this platform is going to be everybody's new voice. And Panji?
Well, I just want to welcome everyone to Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and Twitter. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe. Um, you did an excellent introduction as to why we started this platform. I'm not going to add anything to it, but let's go ahead and engage our guests.
All right, everyone. Today we have Eli Savitt. I think for those of you who don't know him, the thing is, Eli has been called one of the most progressive prosecutors in the country at this time. And I think we're going to let him tell us why, but we're going to make sure that because Eli doesn't like to talk a lot about himself, he does like to talk about what he's doing, but I don't think people really understand the background he comes from. But we're going to go ahead right now and introduce Eli Savitt, the Washtenaw County prosecutor.
Yes, tell us about yourself and how you got started in this whole business.
Well. It's first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on, and I had a rather untraditional route to becoming the elected prosecutor in Washtenaw County, because unlike most folks that run for these positions, I am not a prosecutor by training. My first day as a prosecutor was the day that I took the oath of office. My background is I have largely focused my career on civil rights and public interest law. But I actually want to take it back to even before I went to law school, because I actually, before I even went to law school, I started my career as an 8th grade U.S. history teacher. So, I have to say I loved the emphasis at the top of the show on history, because that's something that's a passion of mine and something that I think we all need to bear in mind as we move forward. But one of the things that struck me, I was a teacher in the New York City public schools, was how far-reaching the consequences of our criminal legal system are. I had kids whose family members were justice involved, were in and out of jail, might have been being held on cash bail. And I saw the way in which that affected my students. Some of them stopped coming to class, right? Some of them were just dealing with that trauma. And we've focused so much in the criminal legal system just on the defendant that's in front of us. And we really often lose sight of the fact that there are cascading consequences, and when it affects children, intergenerational consequences that have come from what we've been doing over the past half century or so, which is the politics of mass incarceration. So that sort of got me thinking about how unjust our current criminal legal system is. I went to law school, went to the University of Michigan. I started my career in private practice. I represented folks in immigration proceedings, criminal defendants, up on appeal, kids with disabilities that were seeking to vindicate their right to an education, as well as survivors survivors of domestic violence and spousal abuse. And then I had the tremendous opportunity to work for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the United States Supreme Court. And after that, I decided to come home. I decided to come back to Michigan. I took a job as senior legal counsel at the city of Detroit. And there I led our public interest litigation program, suing folks like the opioid industry or slumlords that are preying on Detroit residents. And also got a chance to lead the criminal justice reform work in the city of Detroit, working with legislators, for example, on the expungement law that just went into effect literally a week ago today. And I hope we get a chance to talk about that. So I was doing that.
We definitely will. But you know what I want to go back to, because a lot of people don't understand how cash bail really affects people. When someone can be arrested for like a very low level crime and they have to put up a cash bail. And if they lose that bail, or if they don't have money for that bail, because you're looking at the potential of, okay, once you put up bail, okay, I have to go back to court. And a lot of times the problem is when you go to court, you're going to court in the middle of the week and you have to take time off work. Now, if you take too much time off work, you can actually lose your job.
Absolutely.
And right. And we've seen that a lot, because I know weren't you extremely instrumental in looking at cash bail in the city of Detroit and how it was affecting, its underrepresented people that live there?
Right. And let me speak to that as well, because, I focus on mental health and being a mental health counselor, and how that not just impacts the person's financially, but it impacts their mental health as well as their family's mental health. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of that as well.
I love the focus on this, and this is exactly the focus that we need to have in the criminal legal system, is to stop pretending as though the criminal legal system just has effects in the courtroom and to the people that are directly involved. It really radiates outward, and cash bail, in my mind, is unjustifiable. I'll just put it as simply as that. There is no way to justify a cash bail system, because what cash bail is it is a system in which you are arrested for a crime. This is before you've been convicted of anything. And you are told that you can go free from jail, but only if you come up with a certain amount of money out of your bank account. Now, if you think about what that does, that means that poorer people, working class people, who may pose no threat to the community at all and are in on a low level offense, they may not be able to afford to pay to get out. Whereas at the same time, a wealthy person, somebody who's accused of a very serious crime, who may have a real public safety threat to the community, they're going to be able to buy their way out simply because of the size of their bank account. And I want to go back to what happens, and I think both of you really articulated important points here. If you are poor or working class and you are sitting in jail on cash bail, the data shows that after even a day or two, you are more likely than not to lose your job, because you are likely to be working a shift job, right? And your employer is just going to say, I can't afford to pay you if you're not showing up for your shift. What happens if you lose your job?
Yeah,
you may lose your housing.
I'm here too.
Right. If you lose your job, you can't pay your rent, or you can't pay your mortgage, you can lose your house. And if you can't pay your rent and mortgage and you become homeless and you have children, you could actually, we all know, you could actually lose your children to the state.
You can lose your children to the state. Kids may have to go live with a family member, right? And by the way, and this is where we need to think about all of the far-reaching effects of cash bail. In the best of circumstances, if a kid switches schools in the middle of the year, that's the equivalent of losing 6 months of academic growth, because it disrupts the kid's stability. Having a parent who's justice involved is not the best of circumstances. So you take those kids away. They become a ward of the state. They're living with relatives. They are losing a tremendous amount of academic progress, which really means the cash bail, which again is wealth-based discrimination, has intergenerational effects. And of course, there's the mental anguish that comes on top of that, and the trauma. So what we're doing is we are trapping generations in cycles of poverty when we have things like our cash bail system, which is why in Washtenaw County, the first full working day in office, I issued a directive, and we said we are not seeking cash bail in any case in Washtenaw County, Michigan, and we have not. I've been in office nearly 4 months now. Not a single case have we sought cash bail.
Right, and absolutely. I have to say, as soon as Eli did that, literally everybody got like a news flash from the prosecutor's office, which I think is like one of the greatest things. Usually if you're getting something from the prosecutor's office,
it's bad news, right?
Bad news.
It's like, oh no, what's going on?
Right. So you go down and you look at your phone, because now during COVID, everyone's home and we're all getting our local news to our phone. And I was like, whoa. And then people started texting. They were like, Eli's literally been in office a week and look at what he's done. And I thought that was, and of course you click on it and you start to find out what cash bail is. And then you go into all the different discussion groups. And it was really strange because I saw someone from Kalamazoo. And that's a totally different county because we're in Washtenaw County. And I don't know if Kalamazoo is that Kent County or Clare. I'm not sure.
I think it's Kent.
I think it's Kent. Yeah. And then someone said, so can your Washtenaw County prosecutors new cash bail be ours? And somebody texted back, get your own prosecutor. And then somebody's like, does he want to move? And somebody's like, stop trying to poach our I mean, you're not even in office a day. And people in Kent County are trying to poach you. So I thought that was really interesting, that happened. But I was also really, really impressed by one of the other things you did, literally just being in office. If you want to tell them, the new thing you did about transgender, about identification.
Yeah, sure. So there's several things we've done on LGBTQ rights, but we're really proud to be partnering with Fair Michigan, which is an organization that works to prosecute hate crimes against members of the LGBTQ population. And we were the third partner in the state to partner with Fair Michigan. Ingham County and Wayne County had already done it. We were the third, and just this past week, Oakland County became the fourth, which is great. We've got 4 counties now, but they cover 33% of the state's population. So that's really exciting. And we've got our assistant prosecutor, our first assistant prosecutor, who is in charge of the Special Victims Unit. She is our designated prosecutor to work with Fair Michigan when hate crimes arise in our community against members of our LGBTQ population. And we also have a specialized victims advocate from Fair Michigan, because oftentimes folks, especially in the transgender community, have been historically disrespected by law enforcement, may not trust law enforcement, may not feel comfortable reporting. So what Fair Michigan provides is they work with us on these cases, but having a specialized victims advocate that is trained and is part of the community and can work with victims allows us to bring perpetrators to justice. And as part of this partnership, we issued a directive, which, really this should be simple. I gotta say, it should be simple. That
well, we know a lot of people don't have common sense. It's not that
right.
But we said, look, and we worked with Fair Michigan on this, and we said, everybody in the office, from legal secretaries to victims advocates to assistant prosecutors up through me, is now required to refer to people by the name that they choose, if they are transgender, and by their chosen gender identity. And part of this is so simple. Everybody should do this. It's a matter of common courtesy, but it's also a matter of public safety. Because if we want to have victims report crimes, and members of our transgender community are often targeted. If we want witnesses to serve as witnesses in the case, if we want to build trust in the criminal legal system, we can't go around misgendering people or not referring to, or like referring to people by their dead name. It just doesn't make sense. So it's the easiest thing to do. Frankly, it should have been done years ago, but we're grateful to Fair Michigan for coming in right away, working with us on that policy, and then we put that into place. The third thing that we've done is I issued a legal directive which said that we are charging as hate crimes that are perpetrated against members of our LGBTQ population. Folks may not know this, but this isn't explicit in Michigan law yet, which is ridiculous. But what Michigan law says is if you target somebody because of sex, that is a hate crime. Now, what the Supreme Court of the United States has recently said is discrimination on the basis of sex. It encompasses discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. And the reason for that is because you can't really discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity unless you think about somebody's sex assigned at birth, right? If I'm fired from a job because I married a man, right, but a woman who married the same man wouldn't be fired, right? That's sexual orientation discrimination, but it's also necessarily discrimination because of sex. Same thing as if I identify as female, but my sex
Wait,
assigned as birth is male.
before we go on, let
Yep.
us take the station break really quick.
Sure.
Yeah, everyone. And you're watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch live. Please follow us, subscribe, like, and share on Facebook.
And this is Speaking Truth to Power. And just a quick PSA, as we are battling COVID-19 pandemic, it is clear that misinformation can be just as deadly and as this awful virus and spread just as quickly. Myths are spreading on the internet and social media. So it's important to know the facts and to keep our community healthy. The vaccine offered through Wayne County Public Health are scientifically proven to be safe. That's questionable. But it's important that each of us get vaccinated, scheduled as soon as you are able to. Visit waynecounty.com/COVID-19 to get your latest information. Or you can call 313-355-7172. And if you would like to join the conversation with us and Prosecutor Eli Savvy, please give us a call at 313-355-6018 and join the conversation.
Yes, Eli will start taking questions around 4:30. I just have something to ask you right now, Eli. Right now, we know that the Republicans and Lansing are actually looking at new laws that will actually exclude transgender or not even recognize people who, let's just say, who are changing their gender. Like I'm female and I decide I'm in high school. You know what? I don't want to be known as Denise anymore. I am now officially Dennis. I identify as a male. We're actually looking at passing laws. So I suggest that everyone sort of tune into Lansing and see what's going on. And I'm just curious, how is that going to affect what we're doing on the local level in Washtenaw County? How will what you have done already, if they pass a law that says, you know what, we can actually sort of legally discriminate against you. We can actually keep you out of this program, or we cannot recognize who you recognize you are. We will go by your birth name. We actually want to, like in the state of Florida, there was a law, one of the 38 laws they passed is actually doing physical checks of children, physical genital checks of children. Don't know who's going to be doing that, but they're going to be physically checking to see if you're a boy or a girl.
And that sounds like a violation of someone's rights. And how will that trickle down to other counties?
So this is morally abhorrent. There's no other way to put it. When you are ganging up on children, you are ganging up on high school kids and trying to stigmatize them. But you're right. There's going to be a lot of cascading consequences to this. We just had, the Republicans in Lansing were very loud and very vocal about the mental health benefits that come from team sports. Right, they were urging Governor Whitmer to allow high school kids to play. So that's great. And I'm a former high school athlete. Sports are important. How can you turn around and say that we are going to deny transgender high school kids the ability to play sports when you just got through talking about the mental health benefits of this?
Exactly.
How are you going to continue to stigmatize them? And I do want to talk about how this is going to really affect communities. I think we can see, when you see an increase in stigmatization, particularly stigmatization that comes with the force of law, and you're isolating kids, any kid, but particularly kids that may be transgender, you're going to see a rise in suicides and mental health issues.
And I think you're going to see a rise in violence, because if the government told me you are actually a non-person, you don't count, and who you say you truly are really doesn't count, then you know what? I have just diminished you as a person. Once we diminish someone as a person, it's easy to hurt them, because in the government, adults have told me you don't count as who you think you are.
Right. And then it also shows that you're not even considered a human, and you're
Right.
not protected by the laws, because you're what? Who's going to protect you if nobody even thinks you exist?
Right, because you don't fit into a category. So it's easy to abuse or hurt someone who doesn't fit into a category. And I'm not just going to leave that at children. I mean, it's easy for teachers because what we have to realize is we bring our own prejudice and biases to every place we go
Exactly.
because it's just intergenerational. This is what our country was built on, separating people out from each other, making this person better, this person not. So, this person lower than me. So I think when we see that, how do you feel Washtenaw County will handle that? If there becomes a fact where there are laws that are coming down from Lansing. Now, what is the limit in the scope of your power when it comes to the county?
Question.
Well, look, if there's any sort of criminal element to these laws, let me be 100% clear about this. We wouldn't prosecute, right? I'm not aware that there are any criminal elements to any of the laws that are currently being proposed. But to the extent there are, to the extent it would make it a crime, for example, for a school to allow a trans girl to play girls sports, or to the extent it would be a crime for doctors to provide health care for trans kids, you can be 100% certain that's not getting prosecuted in Washtenaw County. Though I want to be clear, as far as I read the legislation, and maybe I'm not aware of something, I don't think there's a criminal element. But let me say something else. I will.
Bullying. Was that child is then bullied for their choice of sexuality? Then does it become a crime? Because we do have laws against bullying.
Yeah, and certainly that can be a crime that we would look at prosecuting. But one of the things that we need to be thinking about in terms of public safety is we need to be taking preventative measures. The best thing that could happen is if we don't get a case to begin with because the bullying doesn't happen. So if you really want to talk about public safety, you really want to talk about keeping kids safe, you shouldn't be passing these laws that are going to increase stigma, that are going to increase ostracization of certain kids. They're going to send a message that it's okay to look down on and to bully other kids. That's going to prevent harm in the first place if you never pass these laws. And passing these laws is going to exacerbate harm. So, we can prosecute on the back end, but the legislators got to be more responsible and think about these downstream consequences.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And I sort of like the fact that, and I don't think people really understand this. You know what? We might not be able to change things at a state level. We might not be able to change things at a federal level, but we can definitely change things with the people we elect.
So
That's
at a
just it.
local level, you're talking
Right,
on a
on
local
more of a
level.
local level. Because here's the fact: we elected a progressive prosecutor because a lot of us saw ahead of how things were starting to look. That unfortunately people were being put into categories, and laws were being made against people to literally take away their rights.
Hmm.
And I think people need to understand. Eli did something in our community that I think I might have seen Dana Nessel do. It was like when he was running for office, but truly all the officials, everyone that ran with him sort of did the same thing. If a community of two people called any of them, they showed up.
Okay.
When
And
they
that's what public service is supposed to be
right,
about. When your constituents call, guess what? Show It's Sunday, so I'm not going to curse, ladies and gentlemen.
right,
Show up, show
right.
up, and show out. Not just show up, but show up and show out.
Right, because the thing was, my youngest daughter was going to be able to vote at 18.
Mhm.
So she read on everything, and there was a woman that ran against Eli, and it was great because everybody, she ran wanting young women to see themselves being reflected.
Mhm.
And my daughter happens to be biracial, and she said, true, I do want to see myself reflected, but I also want to see my views reflected in someone I elect. And
Yes.
so, her and her friends took this attitude. We truly understand what you're saying. But you know what? Our views and our values are more important in who we elect than seeing someone who looks like me. Because anyone who is true to themselves can actually do this job. And that was one of the things I found really interesting in our races because see, Eli's in Washtenaw County, I'm from Washtenaw, you're from Wayne, Leah's from Washtenaw. And I tell people of Wayne County, you know what? We showed up. And it was during the pandemic, and we were like, meet us outside. We'll all wear masks, but we need to hear from you. Because I was in some rooms and I stood back and I'm like, let's see who I'm going to vote for. And Eli got some responses from people. This is what's been going on in our community. What are you going to do about it? And he said it. And one of the things, and so far, everything he said he was going to do, you've done. You've done, and you've done that and even more. And would you like to tell us about the new? And this is one of my, I won't even say a pet project, but I happen to be extremely involved in anti human trafficking. And Eli knows that.
Me too as well.
Right. A lot of us are, and I found out Nakpangi is, and we know some of the same people and the anti human trafficking organizations as it is, because, I mean, it's not really big as it should be. Because human trafficking survivors don't self-identify, but Washtenaw County just took a new stance on that. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So the one thing to be really, really clear about is, we said, and there's a couple types of trafficking. One is sex trafficking. One is labor trafficking. And I'll talk about both. But we've made very clear that we're not charging any survivors of trafficking. Period. It's just not going to happen, and we want to send that message because you need to have the confidence that you can come and that if you get on our radar, we are not going to turn around and prosecute you. You need to, if you are able to report, we want you to be able to report abuse or trafficking or coercion, right? And so we took that stance very early on. This past week, we announced a partnership with the Human Trafficking Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School. And what this partnership provides is that every single survivor of human trafficking that comes across our radar in the prosecutor's office, whether they are the victim of trafficking or whether they come across our radar in like a child welfare proceeding, which may sometimes happen, or even if they're the victim or a witness in a car crash, it doesn't matter. If somebody is a potential survivor of human trafficking, potential victim of human trafficking, we are going to immediately refer them to the Michigan Human Trafficking Law Clinic, and they are going to have their own independent lawyer from the Trafficking Law Clinic that is going to work for their interests. Now, let me tell you why this is important. First of all, historically, law enforcement does not have a great deal of trust among folks that have been trafficked. This is for a variety of reasons, but often, members of the human, people that are human trafficking, maybe non-citizens, right? And that's what's being held over their head, and so they fear deportation. Victims and survivors of sex trafficking may be accustomed to harassment and worse by law enforcement and by police, and may have faced prosecution in the past. So we institutionally, as law enforcement, don't have a lot of credibility with folks who are survivors of human trafficking, which is why they're getting an independent lawyer from the Human Trafficking Clinic that can help them with immigration status, that can help them access public benefits, access housing, that can help them with child custody proceedings, that can represent them in post-conviction criminal matters, right, or help get their records expunged. And from our perspective, we've placed at the highest priority affirmatively assisting trafficking survivors wherever we can. Whether that means getting their old criminal records expunged, whether it means certifying special visas that are available to trafficking survivors for non-citizens, these jump to the top of the line, right, in our office. And anybody who's out there should know that this service is available in Washtenaw County. So if you suspect human trafficking, if you come across somebody who may be trafficked, if you know somebody who's being trafficked themselves, come to us. We're not prosecuting them, and they will have an independent, free lawyer available to them that will work with them and will represent their needs. That's not tied to law enforcement.
And I'm glad that you said that this is a free service, because we know that these individuals don't have the financial means to acquire these services. So it's a lovely thing that you are doing in Washtenaw County, and hopefully our current prosecutor gets on board with that, calling out Kim Worthy. So
right, because
get on board
right now, because Bridget is she still director of that human trafficking law clinic right now, or she?
So Bridget and Elizabeth Campbell are co-directors. Bridget is also serving as dean, which is something in academia you get sort of a couple year rotation. So but she's still involved. And I got to say, the Human Trafficking Law Clinic at U of M does just fantastic work. And we when we were putting this together, we worked with some survivors of trafficking that they've helped, and it is just absolutely life-changing. People don't understand the variety of legal needs that trafficking survivors often have, and knowing that you have free legal representation who will do great legal work can really be what makes all the difference in the world in getting you out of a traffic situation and helping you move forward with your life. They are just lifesavers, and we're so thrilled to be partnering with them.
Right, because I know I was one of the first anti-human trafficking interns in the state of Michigan when I was seeking my social work degree at Eastern Michigan. And I worked directly with them. And one of the things people don't understand is human trafficking survivors don't self-identify. They don't raise their hand and go, over here, I'm being trafficked.
Right.
And one of the things you run into is sometimes a lot of survivors, their parents have actually let them go with friends and family members. And what their parents are doing is actually taking money, and their child is just out there. Some of these people have driver's license that are really not theirs. They don't have their birth certificates. They don't have any ID.
Mm-hmm.
They've been arrested multiple times. So why would I go to the police when I have literally, been arrested 40 times? So
Right.
So you become afraid of the police, and you don't think that the police will directly help you.
Right. And you're watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter Live. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment. And as we battle the COVID-19 pandemic, it is clear that misinformation can be just as deadly as this awful virus and spread just as quickly. Myths are spreading on on the internet and social media. So it's important to know the facts to keep our community healthy. The vaccine offers through Wayne County Public Health are scientifically proven to be safe. It's important that each of us get vaccinated scheduled as soon as you are able. Visit waynecounty.com/COVID-19 to get the latest information, or call 313-355-6 I'm sorry, 7172. And I think our phone lines are open now. So give us a
I
call
think they
and
are.
join the conversation at 313-355-6018. No, what is it? 6018.
I'm gonna go with 1-8.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6018. That's it.
She's right. Eli, now we definitely have to touch on this. The clean slate and expungement, because a lot of people have been waiting to hear about this. I mean, they've sort of seen it. We've had the little news clips. Can you explain to us exactly what that is and how that works?
Yes. So broadly speaking, what happened is that the Michigan legislature passed a law which went into effect just last Sunday. So it's a week old now, and it dramatically expands the eligibility of people to get their old criminal records expunged. So previously, you still have to apply, but previously there were strict caps on the number of convictions that you could get expunged, even if you stayed out of trouble for a number of years. And what the new expungement law does is it dramatically expands the number of criminal offenses that people can get cleared off their record if they've met the sort of waiting period and have stayed out of trouble for a period of time. Now, there are a bunch of exceptions here, right? And not every offense is eligible. For example, murder is not eligible for expungement.
Understandable.
Criminal sexual conduct in the first degree, not eligible, right? And so, to help people through this, we've actually put together an explainer, which is on our website. If you go to the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's website, click Services and Partnerships, and then go to Expungements, we've got a sort of 2-page explainer so you can see whether you might be eligible for expungement. But what I will say is generally right now, and there's always exceptions, but generally right now, you can get an unlimited number of misdemeanors expunged, and you can get up to 3 felonies expunged. And with some exceptions, it might be more or less. One of the good things about the law is that it put into place a provision where if you commit sort of multiple crimes in the same 24-hour period, because you can have one bad night, you get in a fight at the bar and you punch a few people, and you're 19 years old and you struggle with the police officer and you're drunk, that can add up, right? So the one bad night provision counts those all as a single offense. So even if you have more, then you might be eligible for expungement.
Oh, wow.
This is complicated stuff. It's not super easy to navigate, and you still have to apply. And so that's why we have a conviction integrity and expungement unit in the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office that is committed to working with people alongside our partners to help them through this process to determine if they're eligible, free of charge if you are a Washtenaw County resident, and we'll get you, we'll check into everything. We'll say whether you're, we'll tell you whether you're eligible. We can even help you with the paperwork and everything like that. And then very likely we can hand you off to a lawyer who can represent you free of charge in the actual proceeding. So if you live in Washtenaw County and you think you may be eligible for expungement, do not hesitate to reach out. I will give you the email right now, CIEU@washtenaw.org. That's CIEU@washtenaw.org. It stands for Conviction Integrity and Expungement Unit. Anybody can email that. We've got a fantastic director of this unit. She's committed to getting people's records cleared. And so we're committed to helping people through this process.
And you know what? I happen to know, living in Washington County, there's a lot of young people, like you say, that have just had that really bad night for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm out of high school. I'm free. I'm getting ready for college. And that night I just broke up with my girlfriend. So I'm just or my boyfriend, going to go out. I'm going to get drunk. And you know what? I'm going to smoke weed. I'm going to do this. And you get stopped at every turn. And the police is like, okay, you know what? We stopped you because you were this and that. You just walk home, man. Just walk home. And you say, yeah, and you turn around and you want to hit the cop, and they're like, okay, dude, just stop, or because Ann Arbor's a little different. And they're like, just stop, or we're going to have to take you in.
Oh, yeah, Detroit, that is not going down like that.
Right.
It's not going down.
Let me be clear. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. But if you did it in the past, we can hopefully help you get your record expunged.
Because the thing is, when you have those kind of crimes, you started going, okay, you know what? I was going to start college in a couple of months, and now all of a sudden you find yourself in court. All right, you find yourself having to pay fines. You find yourself having to go to these programs. Now you have to maintain that job. Now you've just lost the ability to apply for student loans because certain crimes stop you from being able to have student loans.
And because it's federal money, so you now exactly.
Which is another barrier to bettering yourself.
Exactly.
Right. So I think young people should really listen to that because if you can't go to school, now you're stuck on this job. And now I can't quit this job because this job has just told me, you know what? You can't quit because you need the money to pay for your court fees.
Exactly. Then there's that.
Right. And you can't apply to college because the money you're making is going for your court fees. You don't have enough money to go to college and you've lost the ability for student loans. So I think this would be something that's great for young people or just anybody because it is really because that question is still on a lot of job applications. Have you ever been convicted?
Yep.
Now tell us this. With expungement, because I asked a friend of mine that was a lawyer this question. I said, now with expungement, once everything is gone, just say it was me, and I got expunged, and I go to fill out this job application. It says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? How do I truthfully check that without getting in trouble?
You can say no. What expungement means, this is the purpose of expungement. For all public purposes, it gets it off your record. So you do not have to disclose a conviction if you're applying for housing, if you're applying for a job, if you're applying for educational assistance or something like that. Right now, it doesn't mean that it's gone completely and that nobody can ever access it again. Law enforcement can still look at it, but for public purposes, applying for these opportunities, you do not have to disclose it. For those purposes, it is like it did not happen.
What are your thoughts on ban the box?
Boy, so ban the box is and just to let sort of viewers know what it is. Ban the box is a law or set of laws that provide that employers can no longer ask the question, have you been convicted of a crime on their job application? And I am generally a big supporter of ban the box. Of course, there are some certain types of crimes that you may want to know about if a certain sensitive position. Obviously, you wouldn't want a kindergarten teacher that has been accused of assaulting children before, right? But you can still do that even under ban the box. It just means that you can't have sort of a blanket initial question on the form that says, have you been convicted of any crime, and use that to disqualify people. I will say this, there have been some disturbing studies which show that when employers get rid of ban the box, they end up just, you haven't gotten rid of systemic racism yet. And they end up just getting rid of applications with, black sounding names. Right. And so I think what you really need with ban the box is you need to pair ban the box with really robust enforcement of anti-discrimination laws because you don't want to have unintended consequences. But look, at the end of the day, I think what we do in this country is so insane when we prevent people that have had a mistake in the past, that are returning citizens, that are trying to build their life back up and may have a criminal record, when we prevent them from getting jobs and getting housing. Because what are the two things that are most likely to ensure that you don't commit crimes again? It's getting a job and getting housing, right? And so we perpetuate this cycle, and it's really bad, not just for people's lives. And, I care about that. But even if you didn't care about the humanity of it and about second chances and letting people move forward with their lives, just think about the public safety benefits of it. We should not be doing what we're doing, even if the only thing that we care about is public safety. We need to give people a real chance to reintegrate themselves in society, and a criminal record prevents them from doing it, and it's wrong.
Right, and it also helps to decrease poverty and homelessness, because once you develop a criminal history, can't get a job, that's what? Now you can't find a place to live.
Exactly.
And, so now you have to fend for yourself, and even give you more of a criminal record because you may have to turn to robbing and stealing just to get food in your stomach.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Or just trying to do illegal activities to make a living.
Exactly.
And then, even if you've gotten your kids back, if you're doing an illegal activity to make a living, you're going to lose your children again. So it sort of perpetuates that vicious cycle. And you would think that, everybody deserves a second chance. I'm not saying, if you go in a room and shoot everybody in the room, let's just go ahead and say, okay, you know what, you're going to be okay, let's get you out. Obviously, there's a lot more issues going on. But I think for extremely low-level offenses, it's one of the things that I think marijuana is one of those low-level offenses. I never understood that. You catch somebody with a joint, and literally you're just going to destroy
20 years for a joint.
And I do not understand that.
It's like the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Right. There are people who've literally robbed companies, who've committed assault, who don't get as much time as potentially someone could get for one single joint.
And what are your thoughts on that? The crime fitting the punishment, because that just doesn't seem to be equating properly. So what are your thoughts on that?
So my general position is, I am a prosecutor, and I do recognize that there are cases in which somebody's actions have demonstrated that they need to be separated from the community for a period of time, right? You shoot a gun at somebody, right? You commit sexual assault, right? You commit an armed robbery. You're dangerous to the community, and the way that we have to separate you is jail or prison. But that needs to be the last resort and never the first option. We shouldn't just be relying on jail and prison and harsh sentences as the answer to every single thing that we may want to get rid of in society. And we can talk about marijuana. Marijuana, I think, is an extraordinarily easy case. And one of our policies said, look, marijuana is recreationally legal now in the state of Michigan. And so despite the fact that there are some limits on it, it just doesn't make sense to say all of a sudden, well, it's a crime because you just had too much marijuana or cannabis for your personal use. If the point is that marijuana is safer than alcohol, we would never say, and I got a liquor cart behind me here, right? And nobody's ever said, it's legal, but you got too many bottles there, so all of a sudden it's a crime. What?
Right.
Same thing for cannabis, right? Now, obviously, shouldn't driving under the influence is for any substance. We're still going to prosecute those because those put people in danger. But if you're using it personally and you're a collector, what do we care? What good are we doing bringing you through the criminal legal system? But it goes beyond just marijuana, right? The war on drugs generally has been a catastrophic failure. All we have done with the war on drugs, we haven't won the war on drugs. The opioid epidemic and substance use is worse than it's ever been. And we've been trying to wage this war on drugs for decades. We've decimated families. It has racially disproportionate effects. And at the end of the day, it makes a lot of substance use a lot more dangerous, right? Because folks are buying on the street and they're doing it in the shadows. We need to treat that like a public health issue and not turn around and criminalize somebody if they're seeking help or if they're using medication assisted treatment. One of the other policies we put into place is we're not prosecuting people for unauthorized use or possession of a drug called buprenorphine, which is a medicine that you might know by the brand name Suboxone. That's a medicine people use to control their cravings instead of fentanyl or heroin. Mm-hmm. Why on earth would we be prosecuting people because they didn't have a prescription for that or because they shared it with a friend who is dealing with intense cravings and they might be going and buying fentanyl and using fentanyl otherwise? So we need to think of this in terms of public health, and public health interventions, in my view, are far preferable to jail or to prison because especially with substance use, you send somebody to jail. Have you addressed the underlying root cause? No. You've saddled them with a criminal record, and now it puts them even in further desperation. And by the way, white people like me get the breaks, and we all know the communities of color don't, and it's perpetuated in many ways. What Michelle Alexander called the new Jim Crow, which is the racially separated society that we have built through our criminal legal system.
Absolutely. Can we talk about voter suppression?
Yes, I think we can.
That we have federal legislators that are creating bills that are actually going to support voter suppression. Mm-hmm. I think that is sickening. And how can we prevent that here in Michigan? I mean, we know that we have voter suppression. We know that ballots have been taken and stolen and put into different bags. I mean, we have people that have been at the precinct monitoring this and have reported these type of situations, yet we haven't done anything to really do anything about it. What can we do at the prosecutor level when we see voter suppression at that level?
Well, look, report any instances of voter intimidation or voter suppression if you see it at the polls. At least in Washtenaw County, we will absolutely prosecute that. But I gotta say, and so you can talk about criminal consequences on the back end, and 100%. You're engaged in voter suppression, you're engaged in voter intimidation in Washtenaw County. I got no tolerance for that. I don't care what party you're with, quite frankly. Everybody has the right to cast a ballot and to cast it safely, and to cast it without any sort of intimidation. So report that to the police. It'll come over to our office, and we will prosecute those cases. But I got to be real about this. The biggest threat to a healthy democracy in Michigan right now is this package of bills that is being pushed by the Republican legislature that go completely against what Michigan voters voted for in 2018 with the Promote the Vote initiative, in which we, allowed for no reason absentee voting and, made registration easier and extended the time period in which you can get registered and allowed for same day registration. This package of new bills is a full frontal assault on that. I mean, one of the most ludicrous bills is that they're saying you got to photocopy your ID if you want to vote in absentey ballot. And Michigan voters just say you have a right to that, right? Who has a copy machine in their house?
but isn't that one of the things they tell you? Never photocopy your ID or your social security card
100%.
and send it off somewhere.
Right, exactly.
Because we don't know once they get it,
where it's going to go from there.
Office? Do they shred that?
Right. And let's be honest, everyone is not honest. And yes, someone could steal your identity. So why are we even doing this? This is, again, we already know it's suppression and just the form to stop people from voting, because how many people are going to make a copy of their ID and send it? First of all,
well, Eli, I sort of have to say you might be one of the reasons for this. I mean, look what we did in Washington County. We went literally.
This is all your fault, Eli.
I'm sorry.
Now we have to send in our IDs.
We've heard you talked about on MSNBC and CNN. And, when they're talking about Michigan and what's going on, as one of the most progressive prosecutors in the country. Yes. So I think Lansing might be a little upset with us about that, because to have that title, and I know.
Don't put this on me. They're convinced that Trump lost because of massive voter fraud. Right. Washington County. I didn't even run against a Republican, so I take responsibility for a lot of things. This one ain't my fault. They're buying the Trump Kool-Aid conspiracy theory. But look, you asked why is this happening? And it's really simple. Voter suppression bills are put out there by Republicans because Republicans know that the more people vote, the easier we make it for young people to vote, and for working class people to vote, and for minorities to vote. They know that an expanded electorate means that they lose. And rather than trying to put into place policies that will, change people's hearts and minds and get people over to their side, they are trying to rig the rules of the game to ensure that only their voters are able to cast a ballot. And it is incredibly damaging to our democracy.
They always do that. They always try to change the rule, try to move the goalposts whenever
they've lost.
Exactly.
And I think we've had a lot of, even on some of our.
But we need to start doing that. We need to start changing the rules. We need to start to move that goalpost. But
then when you do that, then that makes us like them. That makes us very sore losers
but why
and
can't
bad
we have
cheaters.
Laws that protect us? Why does that make us bad just because we're creating laws
well,
to
no,
protect
I'm saying
our voter
laws
rights?
Protect us, but we have to have enough elected officials to be there. And we have to have enough people in on our local level and our state level to actually say, you know what, we're not going to pass those laws. We're just going to make it easier to vote. And I think the pandemic has done that because we were all at home and we all had to find very different ways of doing things. And I think people saw the pandemic and they weren't getting the help from their local communities, and you don't get it from the local communities because the state's not helping you, and you can't get it from the state because the federal government's not helping you. So we looked around and said, who are the people that are running for office that will help us? And we came out in very large numbers and voted for those people who are going to help us in our local communities. I mean, we might not have won so much at the state level, but I think we're starting to realize that our local level truly is the change. I think it's the grassroots change that we need. And,
I agree with
not
that.
just because we're the three of us are from Washington County, but we knew that, in order to change what was going on, we had to change the people in power. And we started very locally.
Okay, Wayne County, do you hear that? We need to change and stop electing these same people that aren't making the progress that you would like to see. You actually have that power to do so. And we're have what, 40 seconds before we are off air?
Right. And Eli, we would just like to thank you. And if there's anything else you'd like to say to our guests right now.
No. I think this was a great discussion. Thank you for having me on. I'm honored, and yeah, I hope to come back soon.
Thanks,
All right,
Ellie.
we'll have you back, everyone.
You have an
Eli's-
open invitation to
You
come
do.
whenever you would like.
All
Anytime.
right.
Eli Sabat, Washoe County prosecutor, known throughout the country as the most progressive prosecutor in the country. Thank you very much, Eli. I'm Denise Kiechoff,
I'm Dr. Nakpangi Thomas.
I'm Leah Dotson.
and thanks for coming to our first broadcast of Speaking Truth to Power, the new progressive voice of the Midwest. And we started off with the new most progressive prosecutor in the Midwest. Thank you very much, Eli, and we'll see you guys next Sunday.
Each and every Sunday from 4 to
4 to
5
5.
p.m.
Right? And just remember, you're watching WJZZ Cool Jazz TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Please follow, subscribe, and comment. And go to the Washington County website if you want to see what expungement looks like or should look like in your county.